Perhaps you've heard some things about the United States Army. Well, in that case, in this video, I'm going to be talking about 5 common misconceptions that I commonly hear from people about the United States Army. What's up, my friends? Welcome to an all-new video. I'm U.S. Army veteran ThatChrisChaos, and today we're talking about some misconceptions, some things that maybe you have heard about or you've heard other people talk about, and you want to know, is that legitimately a thing or not? Maybe, I don't know. So maybe that's the kind of thing you're interested in. Maybe you want to join the Army, maybe you just want to learn about the Army. Well, maybe you want to learn some stuff from a U.S. Army veteran like myself. Well, then think about clicking on that subscribe button if you are not already subscribed to this channel. Maybe even click on that bell to get alerts as soon as new videos go live, to include the live streams and become a part of that notification platoon. So let's dive into this and let's talk about 5 misconceptions about the United States Army. Now, a lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about mainly applies to active duty, but it could also still apply to reserves and National Guard. And that's kind of like a bonus misconception, right? Is that everybody always assumes that if you're going to the Army, it's always just full-time Army. And that's not the case. You still have the reserve component or the National Guard, which is like a part-time kind of job. Part-time being in the Army, you know, either on the weekends and 2 weeks a year, or actually 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, that kind of a thing. So you're only part-time Army, and then if they get deployed, then yeah, that goes a little bit longer, but it's not always a full-time thing. You do have an option to do part-time Army. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive into the very first one, which is I can always join the Army. That's the thing I even thought when I was like younger and going through high school and everything like that. I didn't think I could go to college, and I was like, I could just join the Army because it's probably the easier route to go. Not necessarily, all right? There's a lot of different factors going there, right? If you have a criminal record, you can't join the military. If you can't pass the ASVAB, can't join the military. If you're overweight, can't join the military. If you do drugs, can't join the military. There's a lot of things that can easily eliminate you from joining the Army that don't eliminate you from going to college. Because if you want to go to college, you can do so and still smoke marijuana, you can do so and be overweight, you can do so and have some kind of physical handicap. You can't do all that stuff in the Army and still make it in the Army. So no, you can't just always join the United States Army. That's the thing I've seen from people where they're like, oh, I can't get my stuff together. I've been running into problems with the law. I can't keep my act clean, all that stuff like that. Guess I'm joining the Army to shape myself up. Well, no, if you've gotten yourself in deep enough trouble, you're probably gonna be disqualified from being able to join the United States Army or even the military in general. The second one that I have here is one that people have asked me commonly as well, is everybody carries firearms? Some people think that everybody always walks around with, you know, a pistol or an M4 or an M16, I don't know, I guess whatever your misconception is, thinking that everybody in the military is just always carrying around weapons everywhere they go. That is not true, all right? If the only people that kind of do that is basically MPs, right? If they're on patrol, they're on duty, all that kind of stuff, then yes, they're probably gonna be carrying around a loaded weapon, but everybody else, unless you're deployed or in the field, you're not carrying around any weapons, all right? The only time you're carrying around weapons with live ammunition is like maybe training events for like live fire types of training, or on a deployment, then you're carrying around live weapons. If you're in the field, then you usually have like blanks or maybe no ammo, whatever the case might be, but the day-to-day kind of basis of whatever you're doing for your job, for your MOS, you're not carrying around any weapons. The third thing is that you always have to wear your U.S. Army uniform. I've heard people ask me like, hey, are you allowed to wear civilian clothing? Can I change out of my uniform to go do this, or go do that? I guess people just always assume that if you're in the military, that's the only thing you're ever gonna wear for the rest of your military career is always that Army uniform. That's not true. You're allowed to, like, once you're off duty, actually you're supposed to change out of uniform when you're off duty to go do other activities, because they don't want you roaming around in the civilian world, you know, in military uniform, unless you need to be doing so, because they don't want you to be, you know, possibly targeted if someone wants to cause harm to someone in the United States military. People still do it. I mean, you'll still see people a lot of times like in the mall or out and about, especially like during lunch. During lunch is fine too, you know, that's not a big deal. But after work, when you're off duty, you'll still see people, you know, sometimes wanting to go run to the grocery store to get some stuff, or go out to eat and they don't feel like changing out of uniform, and so they still go in their uniform. But technically you're not supposed to. It's not a highly enforced kind of a thing, but usually they encourage you not to be, you know, in uniform when you're off duty, so that way you don't potentially become a target if someone's looking to do that. Now, of course, when you're in basic training AIT, yeah, you're stuck to nothing but the Army uniform, the physical fitness uniform, or the camouflage uniform, or the dress uniform, one of those kind of things, and you're not gonna get to wear civilian clothes other than maybe like the last day of graduation for basic training or OSIT. When you get family day, you might get to change to some civilian clothes. You have some opportunities, maybe like an AIT, if you get like a weekend pass or something, then you might get to and everything, but other than basic training, AIT or OSIT or whatever, once you're at your regular duty station, if you're not on duty anymore, you're free to change into your civilian clothes, and in fact, encouraged to do so. The fourth one is that when you're in a combat zone, it's basically war 24/7. That's all you're gonna be doing is just straight up war all the time. That is not true. Even like when you first have a conflict, right? That is not going to be an effective soldier if you are just 24/7 doing combat, right? It may be very busy, especially like let's say it's a new conflict, right? Then yeah, you're gonna be pretty busy with a lot of fighting, whatever is going on to secure objectives, to secure areas of control, all that kind of stuff, right? It's gonna be pretty busy, but there's still need to kind of tie in rest plans to get you some rest, maybe some chance to relax and eat some food, all that kind of stuff. And then if it's not a very active combat zone, like it's something very new, it's something that's already been well established, then you might actually have some free time here and there. So specifically like with one that's maybe pretty well established, maybe you're in Afghanistan, if you're going to Iraq, Iraq's pretty, slowing down since, the early 2000s when the Iraq war was really heavy, but you might have some, time during a specific time of the day when you're not doing a mission, you can just kind of relax a little bit, maybe go hit up the PX, go hit up some kind of local, bazaar if they have one at that installation, just visit with your battle buddies or whatever, maybe watch some movies on your laptop, whatever the case is. You'll have a chance to kind of like wind down a little bit, and then when it's time for mission, then it's time to execute. But if you just were just nonstop combat and maybe getting a couple hours of sleep and then back to combat and everything like that, you wouldn't be very effective. So they try to implement some kind of rest plan. If they don't, that's not very wise to be able to do, because now you're gonna have fatigued soldiers that are not gonna be able to focus clearly, not going to be able to really focus well enough on the task at hand to be combat effective. So an effective way is to initiate some kind of rest plan so the soldiers get enough rest before you're back out on mission. Now the fifth and last one I'll mention in this video is the common misconception that after you come out of the Army, you're gonna be crazy and homeless. That is not the case, all right? There are cases of that, right? That kind of dives a little bit deeper into probably some other issues, but just simply being in the Army does not necessarily mean that, when you're done serving your 4 years, 6 years, 20 years, whatever the case is, that you're gonna come out of this and everybody's gonna hate you and you're gonna have all these mental problems and you're gonna end up living on the streets or whatever. That's not the case. I've heard this actually from like younger individuals where they're trying to convince their parents they want to join the Army, and their parents are just worried that they're gonna end up being homeless or end up being crazy after they come out of the Army and everything like that. Like I said, it does happen, but that is usually something a little bit deeper than just simply being in the Army by itself. People that commonly end up these situations, like these homeless veterans or these people that have been crazy, right, is, things happened, right? Maybe you have some kind of mental problems because you were really deep in, some kind of combat situations. You had some close friends that died, whatever. They kind of messed with you, and maybe you didn't get proper help, either because you didn't want it, they didn't offer it to you, whatever the case is, and that could, affect you very seriously. That is not the case with every soldier though, so that doesn't necessarily be a guaranteed thing that can happen to you, but it's possible, I guess, but I don't know like what the statistics are, but out of all the people I've known in the Army, that's a pretty rare thing. I've known people that have different limits of, mental states and everything like that. Not saying that, nobody that I know has any kind of mental problems from being in the Army, but not to the extent of that they're gone completely crazy. Just different people that I know that may have little quirks here and there, and I have my own as well, right? But they're able to kind of maintain it on their own or with a little bit of help or whatever the case is. The homeless part, that can come from a lot of different situations, right? Either you had deeper problems in the military, like alcohol, drugs, whatever, that maybe waived your ability to be able to take advantage of VA benefits, like getting, VA compensation for some kind of, service-related injuries. So now you can't receive VA because you got kicked out of the Army for drug use. And some of those people are sometimes what you end up seeing, these homeless veterans. Not always, but sometimes that's the case, is that these homeless veterans were kicked out of the Army or got out of the Army, created some kind of, heavy drug problem, alcohol problem, some kind of problem or whatever that they just couldn't keep up with, and they ended up on the streets and losing their VA disability money, or they just never applied for it, whatever the case might be. There are some other cases where people just have hard times, right? You just fall under hard times, maybe end up homeless, temporarily, but then you get back on your feet or whatever the case is, and that can happen with the civilian world anyways as well. So it is not a guaranteed thing. A possibility, sure, based on some situations, based on some certain circumstances, but it's not a guarantee that if you, come into the Army, that when you get out, you're gonna be crazy and homeless. Now for my viewers out there, if there is other misconceptions you've heard of, I'm sure there's a ton more, right? I didn't cover every single one, but I would love to hear some things in the comment section down below. Some misconceptions that you've heard, maybe ones you're curious about or other things you just heard and maybe you already know the answer to them, but I'd love to hear some other misconceptions that you've commonly associated with serving in the United States military or even, the Army, whatever the case might be. For my individuals that are currently in the United States Army or maybe some veterans out there, what are some misconceptions that you heard that maybe you later debunked, maybe after you got into the Army, but before you joined you heard this and that or whatever, and then once you got in you found otherwise? Mine was like a little thing. I didn't really know much about my MOS that I was going into, and I thought that I was gonna be, you know, on my own in a semi that was maybe like a military, you know, version of a semi, and I was gonna be driving across the country, maybe transporting, you know, different military equipment like a truck driver, and I thought that that's what it was gonna be like being an 88 Mike, which is not at all what it is like. If you're curious about some other things about the United States Army, you can always hit me up on social media. I got some links down in the description box to include a link to the Discord channel and join that awesome community where you can talk to other individuals that are interested in the military, interested in the Army, other veterans, all that kind of stuff. Check out the links down in the description. If you enjoyed this video, maybe think about sharing it, but at least hit that thumbs up for me because I know you want to and I know you're awesome. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Christopher Chaos and I'll see you next time.